When you like Ventura TV appliance, Ventura TV appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Hi, I'm John Mallows. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Today it's on the air, off the presses, and we'll be talking about, of course, the shootout in Paris, the terrorist attack, and some of the rallies that took place over the weekend. You can call in and weigh in because we're talking not only about that, but high-speed rail as well. 436 MeTV option 11. Back in a moment. All right, my friends, here we are on a Monday morning on the air, off the presses, and we'll introduce our guest in just a moment. But first, a few items to get to. You're watching us on Comcast, channel 187 and 43.6, and of course now 13.1. Hey, how about that? 3 channels in a row. You can watch us live, and then later in the day, 2 o'clock is the replay on 13.6 and 8 o'clock tonight at 13.5. And I would be amiss if I didn't mention that our sponsor today here on the program on MeTV Fresno is Dr. Thomas Casagrande. He's the owner of 2020 Optometrics. He's got more than 2,000 frames out there to choose from out there near Shaw and Blackstone. I want to give you an update on those climbers over in Yosemite, El Capitan. There they are, Tommy Caldwell and Kevin Jorgensen. They're still going with their hands torn and bleeding. The 2 men are trying to reach the top of El Capitan in Yosemite, and they are ever so close, my friends. Over the weekend, they cleared one of the most difficult stretches of that 3,000-foot climb. They're now more than 2/3 of the way home, about 1,000 feet or less from the finish line. Jorgensen is 30 from Santa Rosa, Caldwell 36 from Colorado. They are free climbing, meaning they are not using any kind of special equipment or aid, just ropes and their bare hands and fingers, which now has portions of their skin torn off. Prediction is if they keep going, they could reach the top by midweek or maybe even a little bit later. Hey, I want to remind you about these mailers that you received. You may have received 1. You may have received up to 3. Our buddy Mark Standriff over at the City of Fresno, hey, there he is. He's a good friend of ours, but has not returned a call in like 2 months. So call him over at 621-8000 at City Hall. Let's put up the mailer. You can see what I'm talking about. You should have received that in the mail. And then the card you're supposed to fill out. Of course, you have to check the box if you don't want your water rates going up. Make sure and sign it, because it won't count if you don't sign it. And so you got to mail this thing in by February the 5th. And a quick programming note here, not really a programming note, but one of our sponsors, a big time show at Warner's Theater this coming Saturday. Huge concert is planned. It's called the Spinners Series. It's one of 8 concerts at the Warner's. In fact, they're redoing the sound system right now. Workers are trying to renovate that sound system for Queen Nation and Space Oddity this coming Saturday, of course, at the Warner's Theater. Now to our main topic. On the air, off the presses today, it has to do with the terrorist attacks that took place last week in Paris. I want to put a couple of pictures up on the screen because one of the suspects remains on the loose, believed to be in Syria. She is 26-year-old Hayat Boumayadine and believed to be the girlfriend of Ahmed Koulibaly, one of the gunmen who died in a separate attack after a shootout inside a kosher deli in Paris on Friday. Over the weekend, a video emerged showing Koulibaly online in which he proclaimed to be aligned with Islamic State ISIS, and he's shown doing pull-ups and displaying his automatic weapons. Then on Friday, the two suspected gunmen, Saeed and Sharif Kouachi, both believed to be the ones who attacked the magazine Charlie Hebdo and killing a dozen people inside. They died in a dramatic shootout with law enforcement about 30 miles north of Paris. It's not clear the relationship right now between Koulibaly and the Kouachi brothers, although Koulibaly states in his video that they acted separately but with some coordination. The Kouachi brothers had ties to Al-Qaeda in Yemen. In the meantime, live in our studio is our media expert, Denis Hart, who I assume and I believe he's been to Paris. He'll be here to talk about this, and he is here, in fact. Keep in mind, none of us are, and actually none of us here at the studio are terrorism experts, but we're going to talk about the attack on the freedom of speech and the attack in Paris, and whether or not you think a major media outlet here in this country is subject to the same thing. In fact, that's our question of the day, my friends, at least one of them. And we'll put that up on the screen. You can call in at 436-ME-TV option 11 on our question of the day. Do you think news organizations in this country, in the United States, are vulnerable to a terrorist attack? Once again, we got a phone line open, 436-ME-TV option 11. Back with our special guest here. He's been here so many times, he's like part of the family. Denis Hart in just a moment. At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today. All right, back here on the program, and put the question of the day up one more time. Actually, we have two questions of the day, but we're going to get to the first one first. Do you think news organizations in this country are vulnerable to the same terrorist attack? Denis Hart is here. Denis, let me ask you the same question. We'll start with that.
I do not. I think we are vulnerable for a terrorist attack, but I don't think that news media organizations particularly are going to be a target, because it's a different situation here. Charlie Hebdo, as you well know, delighted in satirizing religions of all kind, Catholics, Jews, Muslims, etc. That's what they did. There is a strain of Islam, a very small strain of it, which believes that people who characterize or satirize Muhammad should be killed. These are fanatics. These are crazy people, and that's what happened with the Charlie Hebdo newspaper, unfortunately, last week. But I don't think American news media are any more at risk than we are in general. I think there are crazy people out there. Some of them are Islamic, some of them Muslim, and we all need to be on our guard, because clearly we're entering some very dangerous times around the world.
Let me ask you something, because I read something in the New York Times over the weekend, and it was by Brooks. I can't remember his first name. David Brooks. And he wrote and he agrees with you as to why the terrorists would not attack media organizations here is because we have a different political climate in this country,
we do.
Number one.
We do.
And we're sensitive, politically sensitive to other cultures. So we would never print or have any cartoons appear in our newspapers such as Charlie Hebdo did.
Almost to a fault, we're politically correct. His point in that column, which I thought was a good column.
Did you read it?
I did, of course.
Yeah, that was a great column, wasn't
He said Charlie Hebdo would never survive, for example, on a college campus because they're so politically correct on college campuses. And I don't think the New York Times, I think that's been shown. None of the major news media have gone out of their way since this attack to show those cartoons. They just have not. Now, part of it is cautionary. They don't want to be the target of it. Part of it is that we have sensitivities in this country where we are loath to criticize religions, as this particular satirical magazine did. Now, having said that, that magazine had every right to do what they were doing.
Right.
Every right. Freedom of the press is the most important thing in many ways that we have going in Western democracies.
And what's wrong with satire? We have Saturday Night Live. Did you see the Golden Globes last night?
Of course.
Satire.
Of course.
Satire. Nothing wrong with that.
That's right. When you have fanatics, and there are fanatics in every religion, you have Christian fanatics, you have Jewish fanatics. Now we're talking about Muslim fanatics. Their idea, they do not like anything having to do with freedom of expression, criticism of Muhammad, women's rights. These are crazy people. Some of them act out and some of them kill people. And we're going to have to react to that. The world is going to have to decide how to react to what appears to be an increasingly dangerous threat. And that's just the way it is. I don't know that you're ever going to wipe it out because we have no idea how many of these people. We have 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. They're the second biggest religion in the world. You're not going to go to war against Islam. You want to stop the crazies in that particular religion who want to harm other people.
Hey, I want to put a couple of pictures up. Let's go inside Hebdo and show exactly what it looked like after the shoot. This is just a still photo now. We're not going to show anything too graphic here, so you don't have to worry about that. 436 MeTV option 11. This was the scene after the shooting, and I want to ask you, as we look at this, and we'll take a look at one of the bullet shots too right after this, isn't this an attack on free speech,
yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
An attack on satire, an attack on the Western civilization, period?
This is a declaration, with the pictures you're seeing, of war, in this particular case, against France. All right, France has a terrific multicultural problem right now. The problem
isn't this also an attack against us, the Western civilization?
It's an attack against the ideals of Western democracy, which hold that freedom of the press is important. You get to be criticized. Freedom of the press means that you can be criticized, that there's no repercussions for that. Freedom of speech, incredibly important in our Constitution, obviously. Yes, this is an attack on that. But in France in particular, with 5 million Muslims, many of them unassimilated, so they comprise a significant portion of that population. They have the biggest Muslim population in Western Europe. They have a particular problem that we do not have. We have 2.5 million Muslims in this country, in a country of 300 million people.
In France,
about 80,
roughly
90 million people. 5 million of them are Muslim. So you can see that they play a bigger role in that country. Many of them now, because of their proximity to the Middle East, some of them have gone to the Middle East, been radicalized there, and come back. France has a problem. I do not envy that situation. And you saw today that the French government announced they're going to put 100,000 troops, thousands of troops, to protect Jewish schools, Jewish businesses starting tomorrow.
I saw that, yeah.
This is their reaction. This is the first reaction, completely appropriate, I think. They're going to have to do it.
Yeah. We're going to, I know you've been to France. I know you've been to Paris several times. We'll talk to you about that when we come back, other side of the break here with Denis Hart. Hey, our question of the day is what? Do you think that news organizations in this country are vulnerable to those terrorist attacks similar to the ones that you saw in Paris last week? 436 MeTV option 11. Today's program sponsored by Dr. Thomas Casagrande of 2020 Optometrics. At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
A top secret location. It's the spies who love me, bringing together MeTV's top super spies to fight evil at a memorable moment's notice. They're daring.
That's right.
Brave.
Now what are we gonna do?
The best we can.
Suave.
Does that apply to me, Oscar?
Possibly. And smart.
The old finger in the gun trick.
Maxwell Smart.
MeTV Fresno, channel 43.6 and Xfinity 187.
Back here on the program, hey, Dr. Thomas Casagrande is our sponsor today. Thanks to him out there, 2020 Optometrics. You've been to Paris several times. Okay, would you say that they were lax in their security prior to the attacks on Wednesday?
No, I think that's too easy. That's a cheap shot. First of all, again...
Well, I mean, I'm not looking at cheap shot them, but I heard this several times.
No, I know, that argument, that's correct.
You did too.
Yes, of course I did. No, the reason I say that's a cheap shot, again, you've got a country of 80, 90 million people. You're not going to be able to keep track of every one of those, just as we can't keep track of all 315 million people in the United States. They had a watch list, and apparently these brothers were on a U.S. watch list, and they had notified Paris or France about this.
The Kawachi brothers.
The Kawachi brothers, exactly.
Yeah, I think we got the perpetrators photos of it. If you want to see them again, here they're both dead, by the way. Go ahead.
As well, by the way, and let's just be straight about this, as well they should be dead after what they did. That's the only way you can treat terrorists, and France appropriately reacted by killing them. No, they did not. They were not lax. But you cannot keep track of, again, 5 million Muslims, and perhaps 1,000 of them in France are radicalized and dangerous. You can't keep track of those 1,000 people. They get away at times.
One of them, and I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt, but one of them, I forget which one, went back to Yemen.
Right.
In 2011, and was that, which one was it? Do you know? I forget.
No, one of the Kawachis, yes.
One of the Kawachis, and they lost track of him. This country lost track of him.
Right.
France lost track of him. Then he came back. He was off the radar.
Because it's a needle in a haystack. Remember, think about now, France is a Western democracy, so they have certain rights that we also have. Remember all the criticism that Obama underwent, and probably on this program. I remember talking about it on this program a year ago, when it was revealed that certain people, telephone calls, emails were being monitored in the United States. People, especially right-wing talk show hosts, went on the offensive. Well, you can't do that. Well, you can't monitor us. You can't monitor. How in the world do you expect to catch bad people if you don't monitor every person? There's no magic to this. You're either going to be monitoring certain things or you're not. Now, if you decide, if we as a society decide, and if France decides, you know, our emails are off base, can't do it, can't do anything to monitor anybody, then things like this have to happen.
Look, why doesn't the government just come clean? We know that and this is getting off topic, we know the NSA is monitoring everything we do, and they're monitoring members of Congress.
They're not monitoring every email you make because they can't. Those are billions a day.
Well,
now, they're looking for patterns. They're looking for patterns. And as you and I have had the conversation and agreed on this, I don't give a darn if I'm being monitored on my email.
I don't really
I'm
care
not
either.
writing anything that's going to be construed as terrorist. I have nothing to hide out there.
I'm not threatening anyone online.
If somebody is mine, nobody's listening to my phone calls, but if they're monitoring the types of calls I make, I'm calling you. Okay, I'm calling friends. I have nothing to hide. Now, who should have something to hide? People who want to harm somebody, right? People who have wrongdoing in mind. I have no problem if they're monitored, and seriously, I have no problem if I'm monitored. But again, we as a society have to make that choice, don't we?
Right.
You either want the government. You cannot have complete liberty and complete security. You can give up some liberty and increase your security, or you can decide we're going to monitor nobody, and then you're open to terrorist attacks. But there's a compromise between the two. There has to be.
See, we're kind of getting off topic here, but that's okay because it kind of ties in. It's tied in. It's tied in. But let me ask you something. Okay, it goes without saying, the television networks here and big organizations like the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the LA Times, I could go on and on and on,
Sure.
Washington Post, all of these places have major league type security.
Absolutely.
But, Dennis, doesn't matter. If one wants to create havoc and harm, they're going to get to them.
Here's the truth. If somebody wants to create havoc or harm in almost any aspect of American life, they can do it. Almost every aspect is what we call, what the terrorists would call, what the security people call a soft target. That means that aside from the Pentagon and aside from the White House, you can't have the type of security that would prohibit, as we saw with the White House, 3 months ago, when this guy jumps over the fence and the Secret Service allows him to get inside. How did that happen?
He's inside. He went into the East Room.
Now, the White House is probably the most secured place in the United States.
Maybe the world.
And yet, this guy gets inside through the door, and we wonder why we can't track terrorists, okay? Secret Service had fallen to sleep. They were just completely asleep. Now, do I want to believe, would I like to believe that we're safe in this country? Of course I do. That's why you and I, we've had this conversation over the years. We've done this show. I have no problem with airport security whatsoever. I have no problem if they want to strip search me, as long as they strip search you and strip search everybody else. I want to know when I get on that plane, there's not a bomb on the plane.
Yeah.
I don't want to have anybody skate through. I don't care about that. And if I have to get to the airport 3 hours early, that's just the name of the game.
Despite the security at these news organizations, would you consider them soft targets?
Yeah.
All of them? All of them, huh?
Sure. If somebody wants to send a rocket into the New York Times, and I hope nobody wants to do that, they can send a rocket in there. If somebody wants to be a suicide bomber, and we have not seen that in this country since 9/11, we haven't seen that type of activity, and we hope we never do again. But how do you protect yourself against people, and we don't understand this in our culture. A story out of Nigeria this past weekend, which you probably saw, where suicide bombers used 10-year-old children to blow themselves up. We don't understand that.
Imagine that.
How do you? No, I can't. But how do you protect yourself against that? You can't. These are animals who would do something like that. Inhumane animals.
That if somebody wants to take out a major news anchor in this country, they can do it.
Of course they can. And that's tragic. That's obviously, whoever would do that is trying to make a point, right?
Statement.
A statement. They're saying, you're not safe. If I can knock out X person, you're not safe either. And that's exactly what these folks are doing. When they behead people in the Middle East and put it on YouTube, they're making a statement. We want you to know fear, because this could happen to you. It's horrifying. And I don't know how we can protect ourselves. There's no way to do it 100%. There's no way, unless you become a police state, and even police states have vulnerabilities.
Yeah, they do. And our question of the day here, 436-MeTV, option 11. We're talking with Denis Hart, our media expert today. Do you think news organizations in this country are vulnerable to a terrorist attack? And we heard on the news today, you probably saw it this morning, ISIS releasing a statement saying they are going to up the ante against Western civilization. They're going to target law enforcement. They're going to target civilians. They're going to target police officers. I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah. What we have to decide, and this would be an interesting question for the audience right now, how much are you willing to give up in terms of certain freedoms in order to increase your security in this country?
Right.
Not just at airports, but in almost every place you go. Are you willing to allow yourself to be, not strip searched, but to be x-rayed in almost any public building you go into? What are you willing to give up? Are you willing to allow your phone calls to be monitored, not because they're looking for you? They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about bad guys. But as you and I have just said, I don't have anything to hide.
I just want to make sure that plane, if I get on that plane, I want to make sure that plane is safe.
Exactly.
436-MeTV, option 11. Dr. Thomas Casagrande is our sponsor today on the program. Back in a moment. At 20/20 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 20/20 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today. Back here on the program, our thanks to Dr. Thomas Casagrande for being the sponsor. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. Well, you were on the air. 436-MeTV, option 11. We'll put the question up just one more time so you can see it just real quick, and then we'll go to some videotape here. Do you think news organizations, or anybody for that matter in this country, vulnerable to a terrorist attack, specifically news organizations similar to what you saw in Paris? Dennis, we all saw the shootout. So they go into Charlie Hebdo.
Yep.
They gun down, what, a dozen people in their news meeting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, tragically, they just innocently, a police officer lying wounded on the ground,
yep,
gunned him down.
Yes. Inhumane, clearly, again, an effort to send a message to French society. And they knew that there would be cameras there because there are millions of cameras all over Western Europe, England, France, etc. They knew it would be captured by somebody. And the message was, you're not safe. We want you to react in fear. And that's the biggest takeout from this. And it appears as if the French people, with that million-person march yesterday through Paris, and I've been on those very streets that they were marching, and it was symbolic. I mean, obviously, when you hold up a pencil, and we all saw the large-sized pencil saying freedom of the press cannot be killed by terrorists, that's symbolic. Of course, pencils can't stand up to bombers and guns and all of this. But it appears that the French people are more united today than they were maybe 5 or 6 or 7 days ago, realizing the horror of what's happened. And that's what has to happen in this country if, heaven forbid, we ever have another attack. We cannot splinter. You can't go into the blame game as to, gosh, who's at fault in this? You have to, as a society, decide, and that's what Western democracies have to decide now. We are going to unite against the fanatics, not do the blame game. When they strike, we're going to strike back. We're going to do our best to make our people safe without destroying all of their liberty. And that's really the question again, I think, today. How much liberty is anybody watching this television show willing to give up to increase their security?
Well, here's the other thing. This could have been a wake-up call for Paris and France altogether as we take a look one more time at that shootout that took place last Wednesday in Paris.
Hugo Clément, mettez-moi à l'antenne. Ça marche. Okay, seeing flashes, more gunshot. Reuters witness. C'est allumé? Ouais. Régis, est-ce que vous m'entendez? Lucien? Oui, tu m'entends? Tu m'entends?
And of course, the video from last Friday in that shootout just north, about 30 miles north of Paris, in which the Kouachi brothers, both Saeed and Sharif, died in that shootout. Stun grenades, explosions, heavy gunfire. They died right at the scene.
And let's be clear, they wanted to die. They didn't come out of this. They weren't planning to come out of this alive.
No.
Okay, they wanted to make a statement, and that's something that we have a tough time in American culture understanding, that people are willing to give up their own lives, these suicide bombers. We do not believe that. We haven't seen that in our country. But that was exactly the outcome they wanted. In their mind, they won because they were killed on camera, they were killed on live French television, etc. And it was a blow against Western values.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, hey, listen, it's kind of a two-part question, John, and mainly to Dennis. You think after Vietnam War, do you believe that this started, these incidents between the people, the Muslim people, started, or would you say it was during Iraq War? Actually, then the question is, is it after 9/11 or before 9/11? Do you feel that your educated guess that these incidents started to happen, or even after Vietnam War, was there a slight chance of incidents concerning people from other countries coming over to America?
No, we never had that.
That's kind of my question.
Right.
I'm not an educated. I listen to the news and everything, but I'm so curious to see when did this actually start? These incidents, as far as wanting to hurt other people in America, I guess, and maybe other countries too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dennis.
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for watching. No, after Vietnam, we did not have that fear. We never thought that the Chinese communists or the Russians were going to come over and blow up buildings or anything like that. We were in a Cold War, and that had to do with nuclear activity. We had a mutually assured destruction pact going with the Soviet Union at that point. We both had enough nuclear weapons to be able to annihilate each other. Therefore, we did not. But in the 1980s, when Russia went in to Afghanistan and invaded, you saw the rise of Al-Qaeda. You saw the rise of these militant organizations in the Middle East who reacted against Russia and against Western culture. And that's really what Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden were all about. They hated every aspect of this culture. And I don't mean the United States in particular. I mean France, I mean Britain, I mean all of the Western European countries, which allow freedom of expression, which allow rights to women. Remember, these groups, Al-Qaeda hates having women with any sense of responsibility. They force them to wear burqas and cover their heads, etc. So this is really a reaction to culture in terms of music, in terms of journalism, in terms of everything having to do with what we believe we have a right to have. So it exacerbated before 9/11. We were bombed a couple of times. The World Trade Center was bombed before 9/11. 9/11 was the culmination for them up to this point of their fight against Western culture.
I do want to make just a quick comment, and I think you can look this up online. I do believe before Richard Nixon was impeached, he is the one who said the biggest problem the West will face is coming from the East, meaning the Muslims. I don't know when he said it. I have no idea what year. I know he was still in office. It was sometime before 1974. That's when he was impeached. I want to take a photo. I want to take you to a photo. It's of the protests that took place last week. And of course, you had nearly 4 million people marching in Paris yesterday, all the world leaders. By the way, this took place last week. It was one of the protests and against the terrorist attacks. But Dennis, no significant political leader from this country took part in that rally yesterday.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I don't know. Eric Holder was over there meeting with people. Certainly he could have taken part. I certainly don't see a need for President Obama to go over and march on the streets of Paris. He's made his feelings felt.
He was heavily criticized for that. Not, at least, if he wasn't going to go, send somebody.
I think somebody should have been sent from the United States government, probably the Vice President, Mr. Biden, who travels everywhere, could have gone, etc. But bear in mind, again, this is a separate issue. President Obama, to a certain element of the right-wing populace in this country, can't do anything right except stop
but
breathing.
it wasn't right. I mean, he was criticized on CBS, NBC.
Well, not by CBS or NBC, by people who are partisans.
But they were questioning why he wasn't there. In fact, up till this morning, they were questioning why didn't somebody go there.
Well, Holder was there. The Attorney General was there. He did not march. He did not, yes. And I think that probably it would have been advisable for the Attorney General to have been there, yes.
Yeah, okay. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes. It seems like the homegrown terrorism is more the challenge to the U.S. than those coming from out of country. And I think the challenge in the future will end up being from prisons, African Americans that are disenfranchised, fighting against the system. And I think that may be a problem in the future. I'd like to hear your comment on that.
No question that homegrown terrorism is an issue in the United States and is going to be an increasing issue. We saw that in the Oklahoma bombing with Timothy McVeigh, a homegrown terrorist who hated the federal government. We see this up in these cells that are up in Idaho, in Montana, these crazy people. And they're not Muslims, they are Americans who believe that the United States government is plotting against them, that the United States government is the most important danger that this country has, that the black helicopters are going to come in and swoop down on them. And frankly, I wish there were black helicopters swooping down on some of these folks because they're crazy, okay? Yes, our prisons radicalize people. We have a significant portion of the population, one of the highest incarceration rates, as you know, in the world, in any Western democracy, here in the United States. Many of them are black people, okay, who have committed crimes, and they are incarcerated. Prison does not make people better. It punishes people. We shouldn't be surprised by the recidivism rate in prisons. By that I mean when people come out of prison after they've committed crimes, guess what they do again? They commit crimes. Prison doesn't reform people. Prison is there to punish people. We have to accept that. Some people need to be kept out of society. There are some people in every society, including the United States, who by their actions show us that they should not be a part of the rest of us. They kill people. They harm people. That's a message to us. We have to read that. But here's where we always fall down. We have this somehow sympathetic view that once they've been in prison for 10 years, they're reformed. They're good people. They're wonderful people. No, they're not. They're criminals. So yes, I think that homegrown terrorism is a significant issue. There are too many cells of people out there, and I don't mean to pick on Idaho or Montana, but that's where they can hide because those are very remote areas. They're dangerous people to us, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Denis Hart is our guest here on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno. Dr. Thomas Casagrande is our sponsor today. Do you think news organizations in the U.S. are vulnerable to a terrorist attack? Our question of the day, 436 MeTV option 11. We're back in just a moment.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
We're back here on the program. Dr. Thomas Casagrande, our sponsor today, 2020 Optometrics. I want to put another still photo up on the screen here so you can take a look at it. We talked about the attack on the freedom of the press. This came out a day after the shootings. Two pencils, of course, kind of depicting the Twin Towers in New York with a plane coming in. So, Denis, I mean, quick reaction by members of the news media overseas.
Well, I think this is an interesting cartoon. Obviously, the Twin Towers here, the World Trade Center being depicted as pencils here. And I think it's almost naive in a sense to think that, wow, you know, the pencil itself will stand up for what democracies must do. Freedom of the press is incredibly important to the life of any democracy, because the strength of a democracy, in my opinion, comes with the information its people have. If you have a stupid populace, you cannot govern yourself. You have to have the New York Times. You have to have the Wall Street Journal. Newspapers with completely different editorial philosophies, but completely great coverage of world and national events. You have to have these people, and you have to have CBS and NBC capable of covering without fear the rights and the wrongs of a society.
And you have differing opinions. You have to have a CNN and a Fox. So they're like night and day. Right. MSNBC.
Correct.
All right. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, the question you had on there, are news as the press vulnerable? Yeah, of course they are. I mean, they're always looked down upon by the jihadists that they help promote the free world and so forth, and they talk about lies and everything. But I think also our Western press, our free press, also helps to promote that vulnerability, because they do nothing to protect themselves. So I think it's kind of like they just kind of want to be made vulnerable and be the headline of a day or whatever. So if they really wanted to be protecting themselves, they would do that. They protect their facilities, their buildings, and so forth. In terms of would you send somebody to Paris? If I was vice president, I wouldn't want to go. How are you going to protect me down there? You might still have some crazies out there that you don't know about. And,
I understand that.
I'd be like, why don't you send my I don't know, my dentist out there or something,
Listen, don't forget,
and
hey,
caller, with people there.
Caller, don't forget, after 9/11, the world rallied around us. And we should rally around Paris. Somebody should have been there.
But I didn't see. But I didn't see the Prime Minister of France flying down here. I didn't see the Prime Minister of England flying down here. They said, they
well, no, but you saw world leaders.
They did not. Yeah. They sent their sympathies and their protests via, like I said, via telephone, via the press, free press. Yeah. But they did not exactly come down here and walk the streets of New York.
Let me also say this, though, and I appreciate your point about the security. It was all symbolism, and let's be very clear. I'm not suggesting that by sending Joe Biden or President Obama that's going to increase security for the world or for the French people. Not at all. Those are all symbolic things. The most important thing that's going to happen is hopefully that President Obama and Francois Hollande and David Cameron of Great Britain, they're going to get together, we hope, and devise a unified response to this outrage. Not that they're going to march on the streets of Paris. That's for TV. That doesn't solve anything. That's a temporary bomb to make the Parisian people feel good and the French people, and I understand that. But in terms of your other point, I hope you're still on the line. News media do protect themselves in the United States. The New York Times has very difficult security. You can't walk into the New York Times or CBS or NBC. Trust me, I've been there, can't do it. You can't walk into Channel 30 without having protection, okay, here in Fresno. But you can't protect against everything. If somebody wants to crash a plane into those buildings, they don't have anti-aircraft missiles on the roof. Of course not. They're not military organizations. But when terrorists attack the news media, what are they attacking? The most visible part of any society. The part that will publicize the attack. They do it not because it's the most important part of society in terms of military locations. It's the most visible. Right, and that's why they do it. That's why terrorists behead reporters in the Middle East. They want the reaction.
Instill fear.
Instill fear.
That's all it is. They're not going to try and overthrow the United States. They're not going to stop our way of living.
Right.
It's simply to instill a sense of fear, so that after 9/11, we put in the Freedom Act and so forth, and that took away a lot of people's civil liberties and so forth in order to promote our homeland, our security. So it's you have to ask yourself, what do I want to a lot of my liberties in order to to be secure? And exactly that's the point. And that was the law that was done through fear.
Yes, but it was also done through prudence. I mean, the fact that these folks were able to get on those planes on 9/11 and not have any of their weapons looked at, that had to prompt a change in the way we fly. You cannot allow people to take weapons on board airplanes. And that's why I have absolutely no problem, as I've said, with any types of security at Fresno, Yosemite International, San Francisco International. They want to strip search me. I have no problem with that as long as they strip search you. I want to make sure. I want to make sure there are no guns going on board.
Okay.
But I think 9/11 brought out a lot of I guess the jihadists actually brought out a lot of our vulnerabilities.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you know, we didn't have locks on the doors of the pilots' planes
Yes,
and so forth.
that's correct.
And so, you know, now those are on there. You know, you can't have access to pilots on planes anymore or engineers on trains. You don't have access to them anymore because they have locks on those doors. You know,
correct.
So, you know, it brought out a lot of vulnerabilities that we hopefully corrected. And, you know, but I don't think we had to go as far as we did in order to take away a lot of people's civil liberties.
Caller, thank you very much for your call.
He brings up an interesting point, and this comes back to something we've been talking about. How much are you willing to give up in order to increase your security? There's no question. As a Western society, we never believed until 9/11 that people were willing to fly planes into our buildings because we wouldn't do that.
Right.
But there are people who do that.
But don't forget, Dennis, and the caller brought this up, after 9/11, I think we were more prepared now than prior to 9/11.
Oh, no
because
question.
we put into place the Patriot Act, as
Absolutely.
you mentioned, and all of our security agencies are now one, Homeland Security.
Yes.
So we are more prepared, and I think to a certain extent Paris was caught off guard.
I think we are probably as prepared. I don't know this.
As you can be.
As you can be.
Okay? That doesn't mean we're not going to be hit.
We are vulnerable because it's like, look, take this, the hackers who break into Sony Pictures. Or any
talking
computer,
about Kim Jong-un?
or whoever did, or the hackers who have broken into Target and stolen information. Target had great security on their systems.
So did Home Depot.
But there are always people who can break it because they're experts at breaking. Yes, you can break our security, but it's hard to do it, and that's all you can do is try to make it as hard as possible.
I got about a minute before we go to break. I want to roll one more piece of videotape. It is of the shooting at Charlie Hebdo. It's not too graphic. We tried to tone it down a little bit. So this is the shooting last Wednesday morning in Paris when the two gunmen, the Kouachi brothers, allegedly went in and shot their way through. The one that got me was this guy, with a policeman lying on the ground.
Well, you know why they did it? It's because... So the way we should not react to this, okay, and I don't know that we've talked about it.
Isn't that outrageous?
Yes, it is. But we should not react with fear. We should react calmly.
How about anger?
Anger, of course.
Frustration.
Yes, but you don't lash out and declare war on Islam or anything like that. You're smart about this.
Why not? They've declared war on us?
No, they haven't.
They haven't?
Has that religion of 1.6 billion people declared war on us? Are you serious about declaring war on a religion with 1.6 billion people?
Let me ask you something.
Of course
you don't
not.
think 9/11 was a declaration of war against the United
those
States?
radicals and by Al-Qaeda, absolutely.
But how many millions of Muslims agreed with what happened?
We have
on
no
9/11?
idea. We have no idea. What would you do? Would you like to start slaughtering them? Would you like to have a...
No, that's not what I said.
Well, no,
But if
you
they're
said declare war on them.
They have declared war on us.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they have.
The religion has not. Those groups have. That's like saying Christianity has declared war on folks.
We could debate this all day, but...
Well, let's do it. Well, let's do it.
I do not think that the major leaders
yes, they have.
in some of the Arab countries have not denounced
Oh,
this
no. Well, you're talking two separate things. You're talking about political leaders who are scared to death of the Muslim minority or
That's
majorities
exactly
in their
what
country.
I'm talking about. Why don't they come out?
But major Muslim leaders have in the last few days and consistently have said you cannot deny they've said this is wrong, that's not what the Quran teaches. Those people are not part of us. They're not part of the Muslim religion. That's like saying the Christians who... No, wait.
What was the reason they went into Charlie Hebdo to begin with?
To send a message. Because they didn't...
why?
Because they didn't like the satire.
They didn't like the satire
right.
against the Prophet Muhammad,
Do you
right?
believe... Now, let me ask you something. If you go that far, do you believe that Christians who bomb abortion clinics, that Christianity is declaring war on abortion doctors, or is that fanatics in the Christian religion?
I think anybody who commits an act like that is declaring some kind of war on something.
Agreed. The people who commit the acts are declaring war on us. I have said...
I'm not defending those people. I'm not defending the people up in Idaho that think our government's watching them 24 hours a day.
And many of them are Christians. Does that mean that Christianity, we should declare war on Christians? Exactly. Exactly right.
No, but
this is no more a war against Islam than that is against Christianity. These are crazy people in Islam. There are crazy people in Christianity and in the Jewish religion. They're crazy. They're nuts. They harm other people. That's not the religion saying
Maybe we shouldn't declare war on the religion, but declare war on those who have already, in my mind, declared war against us.
I agree with you completely. There's nothing redeeming about Al-Qaeda. There's nothing redeeming about ISIS over in the Middle East. Those people, let me be clear, I'll go farther than you will. We ought to hunt them down and kill them. There's no question about it. But that's not the religion. That's crazy people.
In fact, George Bush did call, he basically declared war on terrorists.
No, yes, he did, but terrorists are not the religion.
He said, bring them on, and he did. He went into Iraq, he went into Afghanistan.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb on his part to say bring them on, because that's just tossing down the gauntlet.
I know.
You don't do that.
Anyway, whether you agree with it or not, we got to go to break.
Right.
We are here on Connect with Me, 436 Me TV option 11. The debate continues. We'll get into high-speed rail when we come back.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
Dr. Thomas Casagrande, our sponsor here today. We're going to kind of change topics and put up our second question of the day, and it deals with high-speed rail. My friends, you already saw the groundbreaking last week. Do you think high-speed rail will ever, and I mean, we should have just made the word ever in so big, bold letter, ever be completed here in the state of California. Last week, Jerry Brown, the governor, was in town, and he did the groundbreaking along with many other politicians. I want you to take a look and a listen to the governor here in the city of Fresno.
Okay, thank you. This is a little bigger than I'm used to. I tend to like smaller press conferences without so many people talking or praising everybody. But I do want to say, when I first was elected governor, I had some doubts about this project. And Lynn, you helped push. Lynn Shank, but also my wife Ann, who used to be a Republican. And when she said, no, you got to take this money and you got to build, the fact that she was a Republican gave me a lot of confidence, because I wasn't quite sure where the hell are we going to get the rest of the money. But don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. What? What do you mean, don't worry about it? This is a project started at $68 billion, went over $100 billion, back down to 68. Dennis, come on, I know you're in favor of high-speed rail, but I'm shaking my head. Don't worry about it then. It's only a few $1 billion.
Well, in answer to your question that you put up on the screen a couple of days ago, yes, I believe high-speed rail is going to be built.
Will it ever be completed?
Oh, I think it'll be completed, yeah, because once you start
a
project...
lifetime?
Gosh, I hope so. Don't you? I'm a young man. But having said that, the governor showed a certain amount of panache here. There's no question about it, because you only have $14 billion of the funding that's locked in. The $9 billion bond that the voters approved 8 years ago or so. And $5 or $6 billion that the legislature approved a couple of years ago. So yes, I believe it's going to be built.
Well, we're only $40 billion in the hole now in the state. We can afford it, not a problem. Caller, you're on the air. Well, you were on the air. You're off the air.
They zoomed off the rail. No, this is a project. It strikes me that the only people left opposing the project are those who probably would have opposed, I'm going to guess, the interstate highway system that President Eisenhower built in the 1950s.
Come on.
The Transcontinental Railroad, did we need that in the 1860s?
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Abraham Lincoln had that built, etc.
God.
Now, there is no downside. Well, now there is no downside to building this. We are a state of 35 million people.
There's your bullet train.
Yeah. Why do we want to continue traveling on highways that pollute the atmosphere, pollute the air? This is a project, a modernistic project for a modernistic state.
I'll answer that after the call. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
I didn't know you had a comedian on the show today.
Hey, I'm happy to make you laugh. Thank you so much.
God bless Dennis. High-speed rail. Hey, that's You talk about a transcontinental railroad. Well, back then there was a need for that. But I got to tell you, for the high-speed rail to work, you got to have to go from point A to point B without any stops in between. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen because you have a whole bunch of towns in the valley that want to have access to it. So you're not going to be getting from point A to point B without getting a whole bunch of little stops in between. So you already have Amtrak that's fulfilling that need. Billions of dollars spent on high-speed rail. You could spend that better on infrastructure that we have right now that would better help our state's industry and help our people get jobs in other areas. But the high-speed rail, I just think it's a waste of money. It's just a big boondoggle, and it's just a way of giving people government jobs that weren't there in the first place. Now you have a high-speed rail committee that are going to get paid to oversee a high-speed rail that's never going to get built. So like Jackie said, John, it was $6 billion starting out. Now it's $100 billion. Guess what? I'm probably going to be dead and buried by the time this thing gets built from Fresno to Burbank. So I mean, who knows?
Well, I think I appreciate your calling and saying that I've given you a laugh today. Let me suggest that you may be missing the bigger point on this. It's not a matter of connecting Fresno to San Francisco. It's a matter of connecting the two most important metropolises in the state to each other. That would be San Francisco and Los Angeles. Fresno just happens to be in the middle of that.
In the way?
Well, not in the way. Would you rather have the station being built? Let me ask you a question here.
Yes, sir.
Did we lose out when UC Merced was built in Merced as opposed to downtown Fresno?
Yes, we did. That was
would you rather have the high-speed rail connection go to Mendota or to Coalinga, or would you rather have it in Fresno? The fact that you don't have the vision to see what's about to happen here doesn't mean that the state doesn't.
Here's what vision I have. It's too costly, okay?
How much should it cost?
California was built for cars, not for the rail system. We're not the East Coast. You still have to drive to high-speed rail to catch the rail system. You're going to have to pay to park. Okay, how much are tickets going to be?
We don't know.
Who in God's name is going to ride this thing? Only those in L.A. and San Francisco? I don't know.
Well, first of all, here are the answers. We don't know who's going to ride it, just as we didn't know who was going to use the interstate highway system or the transcontinental railroad. We didn't know that.
But California was built for cars.
Well, that doesn't mean we can't get better. California is a polluted state. We are the most polluted region in the United States here in the valley. What causes that pollution? Cars do.
If I want to go to Mendocino, I want to drive along the coast and enjoy the
scenery. And you may
scenery.
still do that. How does high-speed rail affect your ability to do that?
I don't want to pay for it. I'm not going to ride it.
Well, you don't want to pay for anything having to do with government. This is a government responsibility. That is, by the way, going to create how many thousands of jobs in this area? Is that a bad thing? That jobs?
How many jobs? How many jobs?
The estimate that we have is 66,000. That's not
permanent
bad.
jobs?
No, they're 10 years, 15 years. But those are jobs that people do not have
Maybe
right
you
now.
And I can get one of those jobs and retire after
I just want to ride on the high-speed rail thing. I'm going to ride on it.
Hey, as I take this call, let's roll the videotape. I want to show the people there, the politicians and many of the higher-ups in our society signing the rail here in Fresno. It's the rail signing. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. There's the governor signing with a white marker, I guess. He can't even get the thing open. Go ahead.
What does that have to do with building the rail?
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
I was going to say that I agree with you, John, and with the last caller. I just think this is an incredible waste of money. It only seems to be benefiting a very small sliver of California if you look on that California map. And most of the people that are going to use it are probably higher income people. So it seems like it's being used mainly for the rich at the expense of the rest of the
So well, let me ask you a question. If you don't think government should spend money on this, what should government spend money on? Nothing?
Roads. Rebuilding the roads. The roads, for one thing, have been in appalling shape for about 14 years
I would
now.
agree with you that our road system...
And I would say the money you're using on that, you could repave probably every road in California several times over.
Well, I don't know the answer to that or whether you can or not. I would agree with you that our road system, especially our bridges, need significant government input from the national government on down. But I don't think that does away with the need for a modern transportation system. Let me ask you this.
I think another thing the money could be used for, too, is alternative sources of, like solar power, electric-powered cars, things that would be more green, that could be more usable by most of the state.
Solar power
I don't really think...
Yeah. Solar power is never going to replace fossil fuels. It's just not, because most people aren't going to be able to afford the electric cars, et cetera. They're not buying them right now. But let me ask you a question, and I'll ask you this same question, John. Why is it, and by the way, I have ridden high-speed rail all over Europe. It's magnificent. But why is it that Europe can put it together without too much controversy, and we, the most progressive state in the country, which is also one of the biggest,
less
can't
concentrated here in California than it is in Europe. You know that. You've been there. You've lived there.
I have lived in Europe. I have used high-speed rail. Trust me, you're going to like it.
California is as spread out as it gets, my friend. Okay. Caller, you're on the air. Caller?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm talking about this rail thing.
Yep.
I understand from a friend of mine that apparently the tickets are going to be between $80 and $100. Is that true?
I don't know.
Well, nobody knows because it hasn't been built. Nobody knows what the pricing is going to be. That's 15 or 20 years down the road. So it's pure speculation. Don't know.
Oh. Well, I guess I'll wait until it's done and then I can ride it.
Yeah. Is that too much money, or would you like to have an $80 ticket?
Well, I'm on a fixed income, so I wouldn't be able to. I ride the Amtrak when I go anywhere. I use the Amtrak, which is very comfortable, and usually it's no more than sometimes $20.
Okay.
And Amtrak performs a very valuable service, but as you know, it takes you hours to go from Fresno to the Bay Area, and it stops at every little place. By the way, high-speed rail will not stop at every little place because they're not going to build stations at every little place. But
it will stop in Fresno.
It will stop in Fresno.
All right.
It will.
Ma'am, thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. That was a good call.
I like
that. Before we go, because we only got a couple of minutes left, let's put up that picture of Barbara Boxer. As you know, she announced she's not going to run for re-election in 2016. And so how much money do you think it's going to take to win this seat? About maybe 60, 80, $100 million?
I don't think we see a ceiling on how much it's going to cost, because I think it's going to be the biggest free-for-all we have seen in California electoral politics, maybe in history. This is a seat, by the way, and I'm going to make a prediction right now, 2 years ahead of this, and I'll be back on your show between now and then. Yes, I will. Republicans have absolutely no chance of winning this seat. It's all going to be Democrats because Republicans have no electoral power in California. So it's going to be either a Gavin Newsom who wins this thing.
What about Ashley Swearingen?
No, she has no chance.
No money.
No, not enough money and
no name.
No name recognition. And she's a Republican.
Yeah.
Name one statewide office the Republicans have. They have none of them. They're irrelevant in California. So it's going to be a Democratic seat. The only question is
name
how?
One Republican in California who might be able to beat Barbara Boxer?
Well, she's not running.
I mean, win her seat?
No. Nope, not one.
Not one.
Can you?
Not off the top of my head.
Exactly.
I have to think about it.
You've got the former mayor of Los Angeles, Villagrosa, who's going to run. You've got Gavin Newsom, the lieutenant governor, former mayor of San Francisco, who's going to run. Kamala Harris, the attorney general, state attorney general, is going to run. It's not that they're great candidates. I'm not suggesting that.
I'll bet
I'm
if you
suggesting
walk down the street
Democrats.
of Fresno, I bet they can't name the attorney general of the state of California.
No, but most people in California couldn't name Ashley Swearingen either because she's the mayor of Fresno.
So I think Gavin Newsom is more of a name more name recognition.
I'm not saying I would support any of these Democratic candidates. I'm saying it's a Democratic seat.
We got 1 minute left. I do want to run just a piece of videotape. Rose Bowl. We'll talk over it just real quick. Okay, it's the national title game.
It is.
Oregon against Ohio State. Quickly tonight, who's going to win?
Would not surprise me if Ohio State won. I think they have a better offensive line and a better defensive line than Oregon. I think Marcus Mariota is the best guy on the field, the best athlete on the field.
The Heisman Trophy winner.
But did you expect Ohio State to beat Alabama? No, you did not. Did you expect Ohio State to beat Wisconsin 59-0 in the Big Ten championship? No, you did not.
No, but I expect Oregon to beat Ohio State.
But if they don't, remember where you heard it. I think Ohio State has a real shot here tonight.
Even though we don't agree on much, you're still a friend of the program.
We've
been friends for a long time.
More years than we can count. Of course, we're getting too old to count that high anyway.
Agree to disagree.
We'll see you next month, huh?
Hey, well, next month.
I'll be
Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Dennis
Hart,
family. Our guest today here on the air off the presses. That's going to do it. Our thanks to Dr. Thomas Casagrande for the sponsorship. We very much appreciate it. See you tomorrow. Hey, tomorrow's program is a tape program. See you Wednesday live.